Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we are going to be reacting from a video from a content creator by the name of Jamie French. They uploaded a video. Now, this video is a little bit old with YouTube standards, but it's about a month old, where they talked about their experience with Ozempic. And I did a video recently about kind of the same topic. Another woman that was talking about their experience with Ozempic and the side effects that they had. And I feel like these videos are interesting to go over because, especially right now in the landscape on social media, it is so popular. Just Ozempic in general, or semaglutide, Wegovy, all of the different forms of semaglutide are super popular, and so many people are talking about them. And I am not at all against these drugs at all. Actually, I'm very for anyone finding something that works for them. But that is within reason, and making sure that you are, taking care of yourself and looking at the side effects and being very, understanding that this is a drug and it does have side effects. So in this video, she goes over her experience with it, and I just thought it'd be interesting to kind of go over. Now we're gonna skip ahead in this video about 6.5 minutes, because the first part is just kind of going over what Ozempic is, semaglutide. We've talked about it enough to where I feel like I don't really need to do that. So we're just gonna jump in to when she starts talking about her experience. So let's get into it. So this is the video right here. It is titled My Horrific Experience with Ozempic. Like I said, we are going to jump in at about 6.5 minutes into the video, but let's just do it.
I'm so tempted to start everything off with my long, boring, drawn-out backstory of disordered eating and dieting and trauma and everything that led me to where I am today, but perhaps another time. I'm more concerned right now about warning you with some of the physical and mental side effects of this drug, and I don't want to keep you here for 6 hours. So as I said, I started Ozempic, or a generic form of Ozempic, in November of last year because, surprise, surprise, I wanted to lose body fat. I know that there is an entire community of people on TikTok who will label me as fat phobic for that, for wanting to lose body fat, and you go right ahead and call me that. You make the rules.
Actively not wanting to be fat is indeed fat phobic.
Very quick.
I don't even have to say anything. Yeah, it's funny.
History lesson of why I wanted to try this drug. Like most overweight people, I have always struggled to lose body fat. Calorie deficits literally don't work for me, at least not long term. Sometimes they briefly work, but then they stop. I work out.
So I know that, I guarantee there's people that are watching this video that saw that and they heard what she just said and they're like, BS, right? And I understand where you're coming from. She explains why that is the case a little bit later, but basically she has had thyroid issues. I believe that she had some sort of thyroid cancer. I might be wrong. I watched this video a couple times, but also she has PCOS. So these are things that will absolutely affect, your likelihood of losing weight and how hard that's going to be. And this is someone like Jamie is someone that I think is a perfect example of when people just say, oh, just eat less, move more. While that works with, in my opinion, the vast majority of people, though those things, one, don't work for everybody. There are certain people that they don't work for, but even for the people that it works for, it's not as simple as just eat less, move more. As far as if you're just looking at the numbers, maybe that's true, but humans aren't robots, and there's a lot more that goes into losing weight than just that. And so, yeah, I get frustrated when people are just oh, it's that simple, just do it, right?
Often my patrons who see my vlogs, or even if you've just been around long enough to remember when I used to vlog on this channel, you guys know I work out. Nothing makes a measurable difference, yada, yada, yada. Well, this seemed like a very promising solution, but yet I was absolutely opposed to trying it, just because I've done this so many times throughout the last 33 years, where some miracle comes along and I'm visibly seeing people that I know lose weight and have success with it, and I get my hopes up and I'm like, hey, that's gonna work for me. And of course it doesn't. So I'm kind of at the age now where I'm I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with, not to this extent. Again, I lost my weight when I was 20, but I mean, up until that point, I had been trying everything. I felt like I was trying everything, when in reality, a lot of the stuff that I was trying, I either wasn't trying it correctly, or, and again, I'm not saying that's what she's doing, but just for me, I wasn't trying it correctly, or I put too much stock in it, or I just had no idea what I was doing. A story that I've told before many times: when I was really, really young, my mom bought Slim Fast, and so I would drink it and still eat regular food, like my regular diet, and think to myself, this is going to work. We're going to lose weight. Granted, I was 11 or 12 years old when I was doing this, but it's something that I did, you know? And so, yeah, I can understand to an extent, I guess.
But this one got me. But I was also opposed because of hearing about the side effects. Number one, that you are not supposed to take it if you have a history of thyroid cancer, which I do, but I believe it's a different type. So that one is like papillary and mine was medullary, or maybe it's vice versa. Papillary. I had a papillary carcinoma. Yeah, so this drug could potentially cause a medullary thyroid tumor.
Cancer is no joke, and I'm glad that you are doing better because, yeah, it's not fun.
That freaked me out. But my doctor was ultimately the one who kind of, not convinced me, but made me relax about it a little bit. She felt like because I also have a condition called PCOS, which causes blood sugar and insulin problems and can eventually lead to diabetes, she felt like semaglutide could help me. She also has, like, at the time it was only 20 other patients on it. Who knows how many of her patients are taking it now.
One of the biggest things with PCOS is that most people, because it's not impossible to lose weight with PCOS. I want to make that clear. There are plenty of people that have done it. It is absolutely possible, but it is 100% harder. Like, it is harder. There's no denying that. Like, usually the amount of a deficit that you have to be in, right? So most people, these are just numbers that I'm throwing out there, right? But say most people, they could be at a 500 calorie deficit and that they can see pretty consistent progress, and they can kind of chart their progress. You know, I'm in a 500 calorie deficit each and every day. If you're in that, you know, it's about 3,000 calories deficit to lose a pound. You just chart that out, and most people, for the most part, you can get a basic idea. When you have PCOS, it's not that simple. There's so many more other factors that go into it, and a lot of times your deficit has to be bigger, and so therefore you have to eat less to lose the same amount of weight. So it absolutely is harder to lose weight if you are struggling with PCOS. Like, that is just a fact, right?
All of her patients were shedding body fat like crazy and doing great and finding success with no side effects. And she really seemed to think it would be fine. And she has, you know, firsthand seen like the emotional struggle that I go through trying to get my weight off. So she was optimistic. I also got some, I would say, light or minimal pressure from family members, not anything super toxic, but it was more like same thing. They see me struggling day in and day out. And it was kind of like, hey, maybe this would help you. So
100%. Like, I think it's, we talk about this and so many people get so negative about it, but a lot of times, like for me, my mom loved me more than anything. And like, she's talked about how like she would see me, you know, when I was sleeping at night and just see how big of a, like she's like, it was just this big mound on my bed, right, under my blankets. And she felt so guilty, right, that she had like failed me. And so like, she always wanted me to lose weight because she knew, not because she was like ashamed of me or like was disgusted, but she would see, you know, she saw the darkest parts of me. She saw when I was my most vulnerable. She saw when I struggled the most and like how much it affected me. And she just wanted me to not feel that anymore, right? And so it's so normal to have family members, people that are close to you that see how much it affects you, to want you to feel better, right? And so they might, you know, push something on you that maybe you're not ready for. Again, not saying that she wasn't ready for this, but that maybe you wouldn't have done without that. And I don't think that's always a bad thing. There can be things that maybe you weren't ready for that you were pushed into, and it actually opened you up to something that was incredible for you, that really helped you out. And so it's just, you know, that's the nature of family and friends and being close to people. So if you don't want that, just be a hermit.
I gave in. My doctor found a compounding pharmacy that made their own version of the drug. They basically took the active ingredient semaglutide, added B12, which also helps you lose weight, helps your mood, etc.
Yeah, there's like B12 places that's like been around forever. Like, there'll be like weight loss clinics and they'll inject you with B12. You know, it's not for me, but it's a common thing. And like this whole thing, it sounds like, oh my God, that's crazy. That's like a meth lab or something. This is very common. This happens all over the place.
I was already getting shots of B12, so I'm like, okay, sure, let's try it. Side note, I do not believe per se that my generic version of the drug is the reason that it didn't work for me, because like I said, all of my doctor's other patients are doing great, and it all came from this compounding pharmacy. Also, I found several doctors on social media who also promoted the generic form.
So it says, let's see.
Pharmacy. Also, I found
so it says right here, compounded semaglutide, a generic of Wegovy, the one that's really popular, is available at lower out-of-pocket costs to most patients. So for a lot of people, it's just, you know, economically, it's cheaper to get the off-brand, right? You know, I mean, you know how you go to the grocery store, instead of getting Reese's Puffs, you get chocolate and peanut butter puffs or something, you know? It's like, it's basically the same thing.
Several doctors on social media who also promoted the generic form. The active ingredient is the important thing of semaglutide. So I got my first injection, and immediately I got some very serious trigger warning side effects in the form of diarrhea.
Yeah.
Now, I have suffered from a condition called lymphocytic colitis for like 12 years, I would say. Maybe longer, I don't even know.
I wonder if that played a role in why this was such a struggle for her. But this is something that is very normal. Like, this is one of the most like prominent side effects with most people is the gastrointestinal, you know, your intestines just really struggle, right? And you might be pooping your pants, like literally. And so I just wonder if maybe that played a role, like maybe added to it. I don't know. I have no idea.
At this point. So I am no stranger to that, but my colitis had actually been in remission since like late 2020-ish, around the time where I healed my gallbladder. The colitis also went into remission around that time. So to be in remission with colitis for almost 3 years, only to be hit with a literal poop storm the day after starting this drug, I was pretty confident that I knew it was the drug causing it. And may I just say, if any of you have colitis or Crohn's or anything like that, you know the absolute agony, meaning pain, that it physically causes in your intestines. Well, buyer beware, because that pain has nothing on Ozempic. I mean, I spent years, every time I went to the bathroom when like colitis was at my worst, just hunched over in agony, moaning in pain, like salivating, always about to throw up from pain. I did not ever imagine it could get worse than that, and on Ozempic it was worse. But worse than...
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things that it's like, I think it's important that this stuff is talked about because this is very common. Maybe not to that extent. Like, obviously everyone there's different levels, but to that extent, like, you know, again, like anything, there are side effects. So that sucks.
That even, not only was the pain much worse, like I said, which I didn't think was even possible, but I was also suddenly unable to always control my self, meaning on more than one occasion, I pooped my literal pants. It's funny, but it's not funny, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mind you all, friends, okay, this was the bare minimum dose.
Yeah.
This is like the tiny little dose that you start off with before you work up to the therapeutic dose. So I believe I was on 0.25 at this time.
Yeah, this is pretty common. A lot of times they'll start you lower and then you kind of work your way up, which I think is smart because, again, all of these side effects can get worse and worse as you get more and more upper and higher in doses. And so, yeah, definitely the smart way to go about it.
And this was the reaction I had to the smallest dose possible. I keep thinking about Amberlynn Reed. She gets ripped apart on social media. I mean, 24 hours a day, somebody's making a video about her. I happened to catch some of her content.
I saw myself. Hello.
When she was on Ozempic, and it was giving her stomach problems and gallbladder problems, and people didn't believe her and were like, oh, you're just using that as an excuse to go off of it. I believe her. It was no joke. Now, my doctor was closely monitoring me. She wasn't exactly sure. There's no real way to be sure that it was the Ozempic. I mean, it seemed like it was, but you never know. And not one of her other patients were having this side effect, so she was like, I don't know why it would be causing you so many issues. And I do have a history with colitis, like I said, so she thought there was a chance it could be a coincidence. And I had the same thoughts. Like, I thought it was the drug, but then I was like, well, maybe it's not. I don't know, because I was really, really enjoying the other good side effects, if you will, of the drug. First and foremost, the reduction in my appetite. Man, I miss that part so much. I'm sorry if that's triggering to you. Hopefully the disclaimer at the beginning filtered anybody out that can't hear things like that. But I have been a pretty consistent 1,700 to 1,800 calorie queen for a good while now. But it's still always a mental struggle. Like, if I really let myself do whatever I wanted, I would probably eat like 2,500 calories a day. I'm hungry, okay? Or sometimes I'm not hungry enough. Like, sometimes even meeting you know, 1,800 or whatever, 1,700 is a struggle, because some days we all have those days where we just don't feel like it. So either way,
I don't know, man. I don't ever have those days. I can always eat. That's the truth. I can always eat.
It was a mental struggle, but Ozempic gave me this quiet mind where I literally never thought about my calorie intake. Again,
yeah, that's one thing I've heard a lot. Like, as far as like the positive side effects is that it helps you not constantly be thinking about food, which if you've never had that feeling, you're like, I don't really get that. But if you've ever struggled with food, or if you've ever had some sort of ED where it kind of consumes your mind, it just becomes like, it's all you, I don't want to say it's like all you think about, but it's almost like this soundtrack that's in the back. Like when I study or when I'm working, a lot of times I'll put on like lo-fi music, right? Sometimes it's like the lo-fi of your life. It just be playing in the background, and then sometimes it gets turned up, and then you can hear it, right? And that's when you're like, oh, I need to eat like this. But then other times it's just kind of in the background, and you can kind of feel it, and you're just vibing out with it. But it's not a good vibing out. You're just like, man, you're here. I wish you were gone, but I mean, hey, man, we're chilling. That's the best way I can explain it. And so I can understand how like being able to just turn it off, click, and be like, wow, hey, finally, I'm alone would be nice.
Again, I want to stress, I don't have the best and most balanced habits when it comes to food, so I don't want you to take any of my advice. But again, what I liked was the quiet. I felt very comfortable at like 1,500 calories. I always track everything in my little Noom app, like just because I like to know. It's just a habit that I formed. But I didn't have that food anxiety that I've had most of my life, where it's like, did I eat enough? Did I eat too much? Should I eat in 2 hours? Should I not? Oops, my stomach growled. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't get ahead of my hunger. You know what I mean? Like, all of that was gone. My mind was quiet. It was incredible. And it happened pretty quickly because of the appetite suppressing nature of the drug. So at this point, I was still staying positive. I was also sleeping really good. Like literally within the first dose, I remember laying down for bed that night and waking up in the exact same position, which is probably because it helps stabilize your blood sugar. Who knows? But the good parts were good enough for me to deal with the dysentery. So now by this point, I am down the Ozempic rabbit hole on TikTok, and I'm watching all of these women's fat cells just melt away, melting off. They're sleeping better too. I saw a lot of girls say like, oh, I sleep so much better. Some of them had side effects too, but I kept hearing this recurring thing, which is the side effects will go away as your body adapts to the drug. Well, guys, spoiler alert. Mine didn't.
Yeah.
I stayed on that dose for 5 weeks. The plan was to stay on that dose for 4, but we gave it an extra week because I was afraid to move up in dose because of the horrible side effects. So 5 weeks on 0.25, and then when it was time to bump up to 0.5, we started doing the injection in my arm instead of my abdomen, because I heard a lot of people on social media say that the side effects were much more tolerable in the arm. And actually that worked for like 2 weeks. At least I think it did. It's kind of hard in hindsight now because I know I was guzzling Pepto-Bismol and taking Imodium like they were candy, but at least it seemed like it was making a difference. Mm-hmm. So then my doctor asked,
stuff like that it's so hard to like pinpoint stuff like that, but it's so funny to me how social media can inform our like medical decisions now. If you would have told me that like 10 years ago, I'm like, what are you talking about? But now it's just like, when I first heard that, I didn't even think anything of it, but as I was listening to it right now, I was just like, that's kind of crazy to hear.
How I would feel about switching to a more concentrated formula, meaning exact same drug, exact same formula, just a little bit more concentrated. In my mind, that means less water, but I don't actually know because I'm not a scientist. The advantage of that would be you could inject the same dose with a smaller amount of fluid instead of like injecting a vial this big. And it is more cost effective because your vial lasts longer, etc., etc. And I said, sure. And I said, sure.
Sure.
And as soon as we switched to the more concentrated formula, mind you, we kept the same dose equivalent. So whatever the equivalent of 0.5 milligrams was in this concentrated formula, that's what we did. And as soon as I switched to the concentrated formula, the diarrhea came back full force with a vengeance, as well as a new symptom, gallbladder pain. If you've been around for a while, you know my heinous experience with gallbladder disease. You know how big the struggle was to heal my gallbladder. This was, apart from the thyroid cancer, this was actually like my biggest concern. There were a few reports of pancreatitis and gallbladder issues when they did.
Gallbladder stuff is tough, man. Like it's sad because it actually is really common for people that struggle with their weight, but especially it's actually pretty common with especially women, sadly, but women that lose a significant amount of weight. A lot of women that lose a significant amount of weight actually end up having to get their gallbladder removed because of just side effects from that weight loss and how that works. Again, I'm not a scientist, but it's just something that I've known and I've seen it in the weight loss space. And I know people, my girlfriend, she had to get hers removed, and she told me about how like insanely painful it was for her. And yeah, not something I would ever wish on anyone.
Did the clinical trials for this drug, and with my history, I was very, very afraid of this. But again, I just kept holding out hope that my body would adjust, and my doctor said that the drug delays gastric emptying, so food stays in your stomach longer than it normally would, and so that could cause your gallbladder to squeeze more often than normal. And I was like, okay, yeah, then it just needs to adjust to the new normal. I started my milk thistle again, bumped up my selenium, my Dr. Berg gallbladder supplements, continued my healthy diet, continued my exercise. I'm like, it's fine, it'll pass, it's fine. I've dealt with this before. Now this is probably early January-ish, okay, so 6 weeks-ish in. And to add a beautiful layer of frosting to this poop cake, I had not lost in 6 weeks 1 single ounce. Even with the significant reduction in my appetite, the stabilization of my blood sugar, and the basically having dysentery, I would think the diarrhea alone would make somebody lose an ounce. But not me. But like I said, I've been down this road a million times. It's been a struggle my whole life. I was like, it's gonna work. I'm not on the therapeutic dose yet. All of these people in my family, yes, I have multiple people in my family who are on this drug, who were at like 20 pounds off by the 6-week mark. All these people on TikTok who had lost 20 and 30 pounds by the 6-week mark. They are all unicorns. And I knew it would be harder for me because of my thyroid problems, my PCOS, and my daddy issues. So still staying positive at this point. End of January, it was time to bump it up to 0.75. And in hindsight, I see now that that is when the anxiety started. The good sleep I was getting in the beginning instantly vanished like that night, and it was replaced by my normal insomnia, but 800 times worse.
This is one of the side effects that hasn't been talked about too much. This is the side effect that we mainly, the mental health things that we talked about in my previous video, where we're talking about someone, again, kind of going over their experience with Ozempic. And for them, most of the really terrible side effects for them was this kind of stuff. So the mental health side effects. And so again, the reason I like to share these videos is because I know that a lot of people that are in my community that are watching these videos are considering doing this. And I'm not against it. I want to make that very clear. But I do think it's very, very, very important to bring this stuff up and make sure you are aware of this, just so you know before you decide to either, get the dose or don't, right?
Apple Watch, I wish I had it sitting here. It would tell me like, you got 3 hours of sleep last night. Are you alive? Are you okay? My heart rate would constantly spike throughout the night, and it was all anxiety. I would be dead asleep and just wake up gasping from impending doom. And again, this is hindsight. I didn't really attribute this to the drug. I've always had anxiety. I've always had depression. I've always struggled with sleep. And I was like, oh, it's just kind of coming back a lot worse for some reason. The injections were just part of my life at this point, and I had too many other things to worry about, paying my employees, getting my content out on time, write, shoot, edit, repeat, going to my meetings, being a wife, being an aunt, living my normal life. You know what I mean? I don't got time to investigate stuff. By this point, the stomach pain, like the gallbladder pain, was getting a little worse and a little more frequent. I was having that signature pain that I would know anywhere. A couple people were like, maybe it's not your gallbladder. Oh no. A mother knows, and I am my gallbladder's mother. It was starting to become after eating or drinking anything, sometimes even water, and I just kept trucking.
Yeah, that's really common.
Loved the reduction in appetite. I loved the, not thinking about eating at all. And I also loved that I was not gaining anything. Any of you who have PCOS, you know that if you live just like a normal balanced life and kind of eat healthy and balanced and kind of like what other people around you are eating, if you just live a normal life, you will gain by the day. So on Ozempic, only when it came to food, I felt like I could relax a little bit mentally. And that, in my mind, was counterbalancing like the crippling anxiety that it caused in every other aspect of life. Hindsight, man, it's better than 2020. Hindsight is 2010. I see it all so clearly now. So
this is why it's really tough, because I do think that I've talked about this before, when, we talk about like the health at every size movement or fat acceptance. And obviously I have my gripes and my disagreements, but definitely something that I do agree with them. And I've talked about before many times is that for so many of us, we feel that losing weight will be this like panacea that will solve all of our problems, and it will be the thing that is like, oh, I've lost weight now, everything is better, right? And so it's almost like we will put ourselves through hell to make that happen, as exampled here. But like, even, we'll go on these crazy diets that are so unhealthy and just not enjoyable, and we hate doing them, and we're not having a good time, but we're like, I'm losing weight though. I hate everything I'm eating, and it's disgusting, and it tastes like cardboard, but I'm losing weight, so it's worth it, right? I don't like that mindset. Like, I just don't think that it's something that is sustainable and something that you can stick to for a long period of time. Like, yeah, you might be able to knuckle through it for a little bit, but eventually, that train's going to fall off the rails. It's not going to be able to stay, pushing through that. And so it's just, it bums me out seeing stuff like this, but sometimes I'm like, I know that sometimes people will see my journey and they think to themselves, I just want that. That's what I want. And I just need to do whatever I can to have that. And that's why I try and make it so clear that, like, losing the weight is not going to solve all of your problems. And if you feel like you have to kill yourself to make it happen, there has to be another way. Like, there is another way usually, right? And so that's why I don't recommend people do these insane diets. Obviously, this is an insane diet, but like, if, again, Ozempic could totally work for you, and I'm sure there's tons of people that are watching this video that it is working for, and I'm not trying to discredit it, right? But if you are feeling these side effects and you are miserable, then maybe try and find something else, is what I'm trying to say.
After a week passed, still no appetite, still no relief from the diarrhea, still no relief from the stomach pain, and still no weight loss. Zero. Goose egg. There were even some times where I would chat with my doctor's other patients, like if we were in the waiting room, or I think there was one time where like I came to get my injection as one girl was leaving, and they were always like, woohoo, down 30 pounds, week 12. And I'm over here like, just waiting on my first ounce. It's coming. I know it's coming. So it was finally time to do the therapeutic dose of 1 milligram. And at this point, the stomach pain was kind of getting unbearable. Like, first it was at certain meals, then it was eating or drinking anything. At this point, it was upon waking. As soon as I would get up and move my body at all, I would have gallbladder pain, which is exactly what happened to me.
It says right here, I should add, the pain would go away in 15 minutes or so it wasn't a full-blown attack, is what it says.
Few years ago, meaning something was inflaming and irritating it. So I made a separate doctor's appointment, like not related to the Ozempic at all. My gut said it was, like real deep down, but I couldn't access those thoughts. My thoughts were up here because I was just distracted and blinded by the desire for weight loss. Again, I'm not a very balanced person. I don't want you to take my advice. So she ordered some tests at this appointment. I feel like we went over blood work. It's hard for me to remember every detail, but this was when she told me that I needed to cut out dairy, and she is not the first doctor to have told me this. I had testing done several years ago with a functional medicine doctor who literally tested my poop, and it came back that I had a reaction to every single component of dairy, like the whey, the casein, the lactose, and whatever the other one is. And I was like, all right, say no more. I should have listened before. I'm an adult now. I went dairy-free, full-blown dairy-free, still am. And I'm like, this is it. Okay, this was the magic bullet. This was the missing link. This is where the magic happens. And like I said, this was right at the time where I finally bumped up to the therapeutic dose of semaglutide, which is 1 milligram. And lo and behold, I finally lost my first 3 pounds. And isn't it funny that I attributed that to the drug and not the massive change to my diet, meaning
that right there is so important. And I love that she brought it up, because this is something that if you take away the drugs, if you take away all that stuff, so many people will be like, oh, this diet is the one that worked for me. And that's the only thing that can work for me. But a lot of times the diet that they went on cut out a ton of different foods, right? But they think like, oh, it's keto. That's the only thing that can work for me, or it's paleo, or it's this, or it's that. When it's like the diet that I'm not saying her, right? But the diet that you were on was like, say, a typical Western diet where you're just eating whatever you want, not really thinking about it. And then if you go on a super strict thing, you've cut out so much food, so many different things in your diet that usually a lot of times are packed full of calories, a lot of calories that just, they're not really helping you. They're a lot of times like really, really hyper palatable food. So it's really easy to overeat and not realize how many calories you're eating. So you do this diet that cuts out so many of those different types of foods, and you lose weight. And then you think the only way I can lose weight is if I do XYZ diet. This is why so many people get so caught up in like, they do a diet for a while, they lose 50 pounds, then they can't stick to it anymore. They gain the weight back, and then they think to themselves, I messed up. I failed the diet, and I just need to get back to it. I just don't like that. I don't like that thinking. The way I see it is like, that diet failed you. That diet did not work for you. You need to find, like, you can take pieces of it that you might like and add that, but like, if you don't see yourself sticking to it, there is no reason to try and force yourself to stick to it. There's just no reason. It's not going to work, right? And so it seems like she kind of sees this a little bit, is like, changing the diet I can't overstate how important what you are eating is when it comes to losing weight. It is so much more important than anything else. Like anything else, like not even working out is nowhere near as important as your diet, and the amount of calories that you're eating, the type of calories, like nowhere near as important. It is so important. So important.
Cutting out dairy. Anything good that happened at all, I'm like, it's Ozempic. It's Ozempic, yeah. Anything bad that happened, I'm like, it's anything other than Ozempic. Yeah. So while simultaneously feeling very excited over the first 3 pounds I had lost in, 2 years, the pain in my stomach reached unbearable levels. I couldn't wear leggings. I had to walk around with my leggings like below my butt all the time. And my husband was always like, this happened to you 3 years ago. I was afraid to go to certain functions, meetings with my congregation, family events, Nick's concerts, etc. Literally because I was afraid of pooping my pants.
Stop pooping.
Could not sleep to save my life. It's actually kind of amazing to me that I maintained my upload schedule and made most of my sponsor deadlines over the last few months. The will to pay my employees just trumped everything. At the same time though, I'm a high functioning depressive person. I show up, I put a smile on my face. You can't really see the endless laps around the anxiety pool that I'm taking in my mind. So I just kept trucking, but then the camel's back finally broke. Yeah, there was a straw and it broke it. I ate some turkey jerky at the studio. It was like a late night upload day where I just was hungry and grabbed whatever was there. And I had a full-blown gallbladder attack. Like, I'm talking the kind I used to have 3 years ago when I was at my sickest before I healed my gallbladder. But the funniest part of this story is that straw actually didn't break my back. I wasn't the camel. It broke my doctor's. I went in for my injection and she kind of looked at me and was like, are you okay? How are you feeling? I said bad. And I see now, again, in hindsight, that probably the last 5 times I saw her when I went in for my injection, I was like, just so forlorn and down.
I mean, I'm glad that the doctor noticed it at that point, right? So, point one for the doctor, I guess.
And lethargic and unenergetic, basically dying, but I'm like, I still need my injection. Normally we would do the injection.
Dude, I know she's joking, but this is what so many people fall into. They feel like they have to stick to, obviously this is injections, but they have to stick to this diet. It's the only thing that'll work. I can't get off it. I can't get off it. And then a lot of times how they get off it is by just completely falling off any sort of healthy eating plan and just eating whatever because they're like, screw it, I can't do it anymore. And then again, the cycle continues. They're like, I need to knuckle down. I need to get back on. It's miserable, man. It's miserable.
In this one sort of common area of her office, and at this time she took me back into her exam room where none of the other staff was, and she was like, hey, you don't feel good, your anxiety is really high, you're not sleeping, you're having stomach issues, and you're not losing weight. Let's try this. Let's take a break from the semaglutide for at least a few weeks, and if your symptoms resolve, then we will know for sure that it was the drug and it wasn't just a coincidence. And I was so embarrassed, but I had no control, and I just bawled in her office. Because it was the moment I had to admit what I knew all along, which is that this drug, while it seems to work for every other person on the planet, it didn't work for me. And of course I know that that's not the case. That's dramatic thinking, but that's how it felt, when you're going through something. It wasn't just that it wasn't working for me, it was physically and mentally harming me. So I even asked her, I was like, wait, it just started to work. I think I was down even 4 pounds at that point. Ooh, and 17 weeks. And her response was, I think it's entirely possible that 4-pound loss is probably something that you are doing, and it probably would have occurred anyway.
Yes, the 100%. The 100%. I mean, the thing with semaglutide, any drug like this, is it doesn't make you lose weight even if you are eating the same amount of calories. It helps you eat less calories, not be as hungry, and that is how you lose weight. And so it's not magic, right? Like, it doesn't take your body and like change how it works and makes the laws of thermodynamics not work for you anymore, and like you are now some other type of creature. It just helps you not eat too many calories. That's obviously simplified, but it's not like you can, if you were to eat 2,000 calories before and you gained weight, if you're on Ozempic and you eat 2,000 calories, now you lose weight. It's not how it works. It's just not how it works. So like, you can't take something and think that I can just continue doing what I want. Like, people take fat burners and think I take a fat burner and I continue to eat the same types of food and I'll be good. It doesn't work like that. I mean, fat burners don't work at all. It's a waste of money. But like, the same thing with Ozempic, like, or even weight loss surgery, which is really intense, right? If you get weight loss surgery, the amount of people that get weight loss surgery, and then they lose a lot of weight, and then they just continue to basically eat similar, and then they stretch their stomach out, and they don't really stretch it out, but like, then now they can still eat more. They eat so much that they're able to eat around the same amount that they were able to eat before. They start gaining weight again, because again, it's not magic. You have to be in a deficit to lose weight. That's just how it works. And I know that she has PCOS and other issues that make it harder to be in a deficit, or make the deficit that you have to be in maybe even higher than other people, and that sucks. And that's definitely, I don't feel like that's fair. It's definitely fair to be like, this makes it harder, and like 100%. But nothing works unless you do, right? Nothing, literally nothing.
The cutting out the dairy, I feel like if you cut out dairy, it automatically kind of changes you a little bit. Like, if you have a food allergy, you retain a little bit of water. You can have some weight loss resistance. You have a little bit more inflammation. So I think it was probably that. I don't know. Looking back.
No, I mean, that definitely can play a role for sure.
I think maybe it was both. I still think the drug could have been helping me a little bit, but obviously the bad outweighed the good, So I was like, all right, fine. I agreed. I called Nick on the way home, and I was still so confident that I would be able to start taking the drug again. I'm like, I think these were all coincidence. She, is not comfortable with how it's affecting me, but I think I'll probably switch to like Mounjaro or something after. I even text my doctor the following Monday. I actually think I still have the text. And I was like, I changed my mind. I don't want to go off it. I already gained 4 pounds back. Can I have that drug back that was literally killing me? This is why I'm not a good role model. Role model, yes. Role model, no. Anyway, about 2 weeks after my last injection, the diarrhea started to resolve. It is now fully resolved. Thank you. The stomach pains lingered a little while longer, but they are completely gone now. I'm sleeping better. It's still a struggle. Sleep will be a struggle for me, probably indefinitely, but it's so much better than it was. I could make a video in and of itself about Ozempic anxiety. There's so much to unpack. And guys, this actually doesn't even cover all of the random little symptoms I was having that I wasn't realizing was the drug. The general feeling of being unwell and inflamed, waking up sore, and feeling instantly older, like that happened, and I just... Again, kind of was like, maybe it's the drug. And I was like, nah, it's not. I would wake up in the middle of the night with horrible pain in both elbows. And every single time I would be like, oh, I was sleeping weird. Random bouts of dizziness, like weekly serious bouts of dizziness where I was like, oh, I guess I'm a little dehydrated today. Yeah, maybe you're a little dehydrated. A little bit. Because all the water in your body is exiting via your colon.
Frozen peas on there.
Just random side effects that I wasn't even aware of. And there's even more side effects that I didn't even experience because I didn't experience any significant weight loss. So there's a huge thing going around the internet now called Ozempic face that I keep seeing. Dodged a bullet there, I suppose. I don't know. And again, I know that this video is probably going to come across that I am anti-Ozempic, or that
I don't think that it comes across as you're anti-Ozempic, but that's where we're going to stop the video, because that's pretty much the end. The reason that I like to share these videos is because, again, it is so popular right now, right? It's everywhere. Ozempic, everyone's talking about it. And again, I'm not against it, but I do think it's important to have these stories out there and have people understand that this is a drug, right? Like with anything, there are there can be serious side effects for some people. And I think like you should weigh all of your options before you do anything, right? Before you decide to take any sort of drug, before you decide to get any sort of surgery, before any of that stuff, right? Because this stuff can be dangerous. But I do want to say, I want to make it clear that I hope that if you are someone that is taking Ozempic or any sort of semaglutide, that I hope it works for you. And I at the end of the day, all I want for anyone that's watching my channel, I assume you're watching because you're someone that either has lost weight, wants to lose weight, or is interested in that kind of stuff, wants to get fit, whatever. I just hope that you find something that works for you and that you are safe while you are doing it and that you are healthy. That's it, right? And so if you decide to take something like this and it causes you all of these different side effects, then maybe that thing's not for you. And but it's okay, you know, it's okay. It doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't make you a bad person. As long as like you keep trying to find what works for you. Like the only way that you fail is when you stop trying, right? When you just give up and be like, well, there's nothing I can do. I might as well just live like this and deal with it, right? That's how I feel. But I am genuinely curious what you guys think down in the comment section down below. If you are someone that has taken semaglutide, any form of that, and you've had, success, I would love to hear about it. If you've had bad side effects, I would love to hear about that as well. I think these things are important to talk about, and, hopefully the comment section can be something that is, helps people out that are maybe considering going down that route. But I do want to say I really appreciated this video. I will link the entire thing down in the description so you can watch it if you want to. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.